Welcome back, everybody, for another episode of Mondays with Mundy, and that's me, Jim Mundy, the historian for the Union League Legacy Foundation. And if you've seen any of these episodes before, you've noticed that I'm either not in my third floor house garret in front of my bookshelves, or I'm not located someplace inside the Union League house. Instead, I'm still on a Union League property, but we are at the Union League Golf Club at Torresdale. So how did I get here? How did we get here? That's the story that we're going to talk about today. So we're going to go back to the post-Civil War period, and keep in mind that the Civil War ended in 1865. And at that point, Philadelphia was already the country's largest industrial city. It had a fair amount of wealth to begin with, but the post-Civil War industrial boom that would hit Philadelphia would produce an incredible amount of wealth, both for the industrialists and perhaps the old, what we call the social hereditary class in Philadelphia themselves. But regardless, there was just a lot of money. And that created a new desire for forms of leisure. And that produced a number of clubs that we think of today as cricket clubs and country clubs, right? So they were evolving in the 1860s and the 1870s. Golf wasn't here yet. So they were playing cricket, they're playing croquet, they're bicycling, they've got steeplechase, other kind of equestrian sports. But golf really wouldn't become popular in Philadelphia until the first unofficial golf club, if you will, was formed at the Philadelphia Country Club in 1891. Now, the Philadelphia Country Club was then in the Ballard neighborhood of Philadelphia. Think of where the Ballard Golf Club is today along Belmont Avenue and the old Pennsylvania Railroad tracks, right? Okay, so they literally had 3 golf holes. The holes themselves were tin cans that they were using, and they were chipping the ball maybe 75 feet at the most. So it was the first attempt to create golf in Philadelphia. 2 years later, though, in 1893, a few Philadelphians who lived out in the western suburbs in Devon would create the Devon Golf Club. And this was going to be a full 9-hole course. Not very long, not even 3,000 yards. But it was the first legitimate attempt to really play golf in Philadelphia. 1895, the USGA, United States Golf Association, is organized. And now golf is firmly established in the sporting and leisure world in the country. At the same time, in October of 1895, at the Philadelphia Cricket Club in the Chestnut Hill neighborhood of Philadelphia, they opened up their own 9-hole course. So now golf is in the city itself. Just a few months later, in May of 1896, it goes back to the suburbs in Ardmore, where the Murray Cricket Club opened up its own 9-hole course. And that was the beginning of this wave of golf clubs, country clubs, that would last through the early 20th century. Between 1896 and 1908, there were roughly 22 clubs that were organized in this period of time. So how does that get us to here? All right, so December of 1897 at the Red Lion Inn, which would have been about 3 miles in that direction north of here, right? And unfortunately no longer exists. But that night, 20 men got together and determined to create their own golf club here in the northeast section of Philadelphia, right? In March of 1897, in a newspaper article, they announced their board of directors. They incorporated in 1899, but they were already playing golf in 1897. And actually, the board of directors of this newest club in the city, actually 33% of them were members of the Union League. So already, the league not only had a presence in Center City, but now it has one in the far northeast section of Philadelphia as well. One of those members was named Edward Morrell, Colonel Edward Morrell. He was a Civil War veteran. And he did the smart thing by marrying into the Drexel family. So he had money of his own, don't get me wrong, but he also had a racetrack then, not too far from here, called Pinehurst. And the inside loop, or the inside of the oval, about 10 acres, was used as the first golf club then for this Torresdale Country Club. It was designed by their first golf pro, Jimmy Campbell from Scotland, with the help of the Greens Committee, and with that they were up and running. But of course 10 acres isn't going to last for very long, and so shortly thereafter, by 1911, they needed more land, and so they used what was known as the Mack Estate, which was in that direction, west down Grand Avenue, and it was on the south side of Grand Avenue at Ashton Road. And that didn't last long either, because in 1915, 2 members of the club, William Diamond and C. William Middleton, bought 61 acres of ground on the north side of Grand Avenue, and guess what, folks? That's where I'm standing today. And then now again, these are all 9-hole courses, so you simply would play 9 holes twice, and that would give you the 18 holes that you were looking for. So 9 holes isn't going to cut it. because they were starting to buy more property up here. And so in around 1919, they hired Donald Ross, who at that point is becoming one of the great American golf course architects. And they hire him to design an 18-hole golf course that is now surrounding us and known as the Union League Golf Club at Torresdale itself. So that gets us to 1922. But that's not the end of our story, because in 1901, according to Jim Finnegan's History of Golf in Philadelphia, and Jim Finnegan, by the way, was a Union League member and a great golfer. 1901, the Frankfurt Country Club was organized in the Frankfurt neighborhood of Philadelphia. Now that was the industrial heartland in what was then known as the workshop of the world. I mean, that's where Philadelphia's wealth was coming from. It's industrial and manufacturing wealth that produced the money to produce these country clubs. So they were organized in 1901. At that point, they were renting the farm of the Wister brothers, the few Wisters who got out of Germantown, perhaps. And they were playing on 90 acres of ground, but again, just 9 holes, using the Wister farmhouse as their clubhouse. But as the years went on, and as industrialization just started to expand, they had to move as well. And so by 1922, there were negotiations with the Torresdale Country Club to merge. But even before that, though, both of those clubs had someone in common, and that was the club champion. And if you can imagine, it turned out to be a Roman Catholic priest named Father Simon Carr. Father Carr was a graduate of LaSalle College High School, St. Charles Borromeo Seminary, and then he became the first PhD awardee at the Catholic University of America. But apparently Father Carr had some leisurely time on his hands, and he became quite the golfer, because he held the club records at both Frankfurt and at Torresdale for many, many years. And ultimately Father Carr would serve in, 32 parishes in the Archdiocese of Philadelphia. So they already had something in common before they merged. So January of 1922, each of the two clubs' boards of directors agrees to the merger. The Philadelphia Court of Common Pleas approves it in February of 1922. And next thing you know, we have the Torresdale Frankfurt Country Club on this beautiful 200 plus acre site and a golf course designed by Donald Ross, and who, by the way, if you haven't noticed yet, is over my left shoulder, right? Okay, so things are going along splendidly well. 1941, September, a series of tournaments becomes instituted here at Torresdale. A Torresdale member named Henry Hurst creates the Henry Hurst Invitational Golf Tournament. And in that September, one of the golfers it attracted was a PGA pro named Sam Snead. And Sam Snead, in a qualifying round, would shoot the lowest round on record at 64. And that was in 1941 with 1941 equipment and golf balls. Pretty impressive, because that doesn't happen in the 21st century with everything that's souped up that we have today. It was also the first time that bleachers had been used at a golf tournament, believe it or not, and they were situated at both the 9th and the 18th holes, right? So you could see both and the other goals that were emanating off from them. And actually, there was also there were 2 practice rounds with, at that point, the world famous Bobby Jones, although he lost both of those rounds, unfortunately for him. And then even perhaps more interestingly enough, the comedian Bob Hope was here to play a charity tournament, if you will. And he and his partner, Lawrence Littleton, lost to Philadelphian John B. Kelly and his partner Ed Daly by down 3-2 in a match play course. So that was the beginning of tournament play up here, if you will, at Torresdale itself. And that would actually, World War II would eventually stop all that activity. But nonetheless, you can see, though, how active the golf community was here at Torresdale itself. So let's see, what comes next? 1961. The state of Pennsylvania and the city of Philadelphia want to widen Grant Avenue, which is off to the south side of the property. And they widened it by 61 feet on each side. That's a lot of real estate to take up. And so obviously, the golf club lost some of its original holes along Grant Avenue, but nonetheless, I think they did a very nice job of readapting, and those holes are still there to this day, although I believe that if I know Jeff McFadden, the league's general manager, and Sean Palmer, the director of golf, they're going to try and recreate those 1922 holes in some way, shape, or form. So we'll see how well that project goes. So let's see. So that gets to 1941, 1961, 1993. Trap skeet. This is a multiple sport country club then, as it is now, and they had trap and skeet shooting, and so its club champion, named Rhoda Wolf, was inducted into the National Sharpshooters Hall of Fame. Pretty impressive stuff all the way around. But the late 20th and early 21st centuries, though, weren't kind to Northeast Philadelphia in a lot of ways. So the economy was contracting. There wasn't as much available money. The club, was still doing okay, but they needed some help. And Jeff McFadden, the general manager of the Union League, understood that league members liked to play golf because most of them, or those who wanted to, belonged to at least two country clubs. And he thought, if they're going to join a country club, why not join a Union League country club? And so, in March of 2014, the boards of the two clubs agree to a partnership arrangement that was approved by the Union League membership unanimously at a general meeting on April the 16th. And on July the 1st, the Union League Golf Club at Torresdale was open for play. And to show how brilliant an idea and a concept this was, we now have 3 country clubs as part of the Union League's membership base. So immediately, almost here, as soon as golfers were off and running on July the 1st, it was clear that this was a great idea. But the course and the clubhouse both needed a lot of tender loving care, some good TLC. And so by October the 1st, both had been closed for renovations and restorations. The league brought in a golf course architect who's made his reputation on rebuilding and restoring Donald Ross courses. His name was Stephen Kay, and he laid the foundation for the work that you see today on these golf courses. And then, of course, in the interior, the league hired architects and engineers and designers to restore and really convert the interior to a modern country clubhouse. And both of those would open in 2015. So the golf course itself was reopened for play on May the 28th of 2015, and in between, the league had hired its first professional golf pro, and that was Sean Palmer. And Sean is now the director of golf for all 3 of the golf courses that the Union League has. And they hired Sandy Cataldi, who I remember fondly from having run the old cafe in Center City, to being the club manager here at Torresdale, and she is still here today as well. So, now, when you walk inside the clubhouse, there's always a league connection to everything, if you haven't noticed. The member a la carte dining room is called McAllister's, and it's named after Charles McAllister, who was born in Philadelphia in 1798, but from an area of Scotland on the Kintyre Peninsula called Torresdale. That's with an I, not an E, so Torrisdale. And in 1850, he built a house, maybe not even a mile away from here on the Delaware River, on a 1,000-acre plot that he had purchased. And McAllister was one of the most successful entrepreneurs and businessmen in Philadelphia, but especially in the northeast section of Philadelphia. Very popular man, very, very competent, and very wealthy. And so he builds his house and calls it Glengarry, and that's his home, beginning in 1850. And at that point then, this section becomes known as Torresdale. All right, makes sense, doesn't it? All right. So McAllister would join the league in 1865, and he would stay a league member until he died in 1873. So it seemed rather appropriate that the dining room was named after a member of the country club and a league member named Charles McAllister. So the league was everywhere at all the time, it seems. So what about Donald Ross? That is he behind me, right? I think you recognize him by now. So Ross was born in Scotland. 1879, I'm going to say. Born in Dornoch, Scotland, which has one of the best golf courses in all of Scotland. And as a young man, in his late teens, he got a job working for Old Tom Morris at Old St. Andrews. But I think he understood that he wouldn't have much of a chance of getting a full-time job there, and so he emigrated to America, walks off the boat with $2 in his pocket, ends up in suburban Boston, where he ends up working at the Oakley Country Club. And the rest, as they say, is history. He would eventually, within a year or two, like around 1900, he would emigrate to Pinehurst, North Carolina, where he became the head pro there, and use his skills at club making, architecture, landscaping. The man did everything. And he would create his own golf course design company that would become legendary in the first half of the 20th century in the United States. So Donald Ross was invited by the Torresdale Country Club to design this course, and he did a heck of a job. It's considered, actually, this is the last 18, no, I take that back. There's also, I thought this was the last 18-hole golf country club in the city, but there's also the Bala Golf Club in the Winfield neighborhood of Philadelphia, just off of City Line Avenue and Belmont Avenue. Designed by William Flynn, of all people, as well. So this is just a magnificent operation here. And Ross, by the way, would design a number of courses around Philadelphia. He would design Aronimink, probably his most famous one, but also the Lulu Country Club in North Wales. He did Gulf Mills in Gulf Mills. He did Kennett Square in Kennett Square. He would also do one of the most now appreciated daily fee courses in Jeffersonville in Montgomery County, just outside of Norristown, called Jefferson Golf Club. So there's a lot of good, you can do a really good Ross golf pilgrimage in Philadelphia if you're ever up to it. So what else is going on around here today? So in 2017, they instituted a caddy program that would award scholarships to caddies. Philanthropy has always been an important part and asset of the Union League's history. And so here at Torresdale, they have a caddy academy, and 8 young caddies every year are given scholarships. And they're also taught, they're not just given scholarships, but they're also taught things like civics, entrepreneurship, etiquette, and things like that, and also how to be a golfer. So that tradition of philanthropy is still very much evident up here at Torresdale itself. So having said all of that, beautiful, beautiful summer day up here. And if you pan around the golf course, and this is one of the most, I think, impressive views from any country club in the country that you're probably going to find. And this is the beauty of Donald Ross's design. So on the far right, you have the first hole, and behind that, beyond that, you're going to see what will become, probably in 2024, I call an executive par 3 course with 2 different tee boxes. So that'll be magnificent. And then a little to the left, one of the hardest holes in the course, number 8, because you're shooting down the fairway, then to a drop in elevation onto a green that is over water. And I guarantee you, more than 50% of the balls probably go in the water, including mine at times. And then to the left of that, we have number 10, going uphill, par 5, and then, I'm sorry, so of course I forgot to talk about number 9, which is that par 3 between 8 and 10. And then, of course, to the far left is 18 itself. And there isn't, I think, a better view out of any clubhouse in the Philadelphia region than what you see right now today, folks. So for Union League members, if you haven't been here, you owe it to yourselves to get up here as quickly as possible, whether you play golf or not. They're doing wonderful renovations to the clubhouse. They're adding outdoor dining, an outdoor bar. There's just nothing not to love about the Union League Golf Club at Torresdale. So our goal, by the way, folks, is to do these videos on the other 2 golf clubs as well. So Union League National in Cape May Courthouse, New Jersey, and then, of course, the newest of the properties, Liberty Hill and Lafayette Hill, just outside the city line. And if you haven't noticed, I'm not wearing a bow tie today, folks, am I? I am wearing a Torresdale golf shirt that I bought when the club opened years ago, and you can see it's got the Torresdale T on it. All right, although we don't use it anymore, but it does have the proverbial elephant inside the T. So, all right, folks, well, that's it for now. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and please have a wonderful summer and come out and play golf. It's good for you. Stay well and take care, folks. Goodbye.